Trubor nakaslem jong unongsan Hima.
Returning officer bapanya yaki election banjiet yu national president but national general secretary jongka National People's Party u abhei Kashyap. Henne kasngi habakali kumnu kaseng ka jet biang ya uthoma sangma kum u national general secretary haba usha keno ba udan daksniu. Nakalyang u Kashyap ulaong Haduh Mynta ka yung bishar kampat aya ka jing bishar halor kani la ka Jingkynnoh ka day ni kamday. Ulaong ru bakani kamday ka kamram jong kaseng bantu kelar. Namar kadai ka kam jong ubriu simen banyak hun ya kani ka jingsha keno. Ulaong ru bangim day kinong bishar henry ay bakayeng bishar kan bishar ya kani ka kam. Nakalyang u Dr. W.R. Khaluki ulaong bakani ka jingsha keno kamday kasien ka banengkong. Kiladon ki basha keno menshwaru. Henry nakalyang kaseng ka krensyay balada ka jingsha keno kadai kaseng kan wengno yaki kumkir khot jongka.
A lawyer in the Supreme Court and I earn my living by practicing law. And one of the things that I was taught and try to pass on to anybody who comes to my chambers for even training is that a person is not guilty unless the courts find him so. Because if we were to go by charges without going into the merit of the charges or red flag that you are raising, I would humbly submit that every citizen of the country has a right, a constitutional right to stand up for election for a post for which he may be qualified. And Mr. Sangma was amply qualified for the position. So I would not like to comment on something which may be sub judice or which may not be relevant to our election directly. It is something which is very flexible in the sense that it's directly related to the ethical question of what is right and wrong. I think that is what you are trying to point out. I remember that when heads were being chopped off after the French Revolution at the orders of Robespierre, a particular lady got up and said in front of the Statue of Liberty, "Oh Liberty, what wrongs are not committed in your name?" This is at the peak of the movement which has given us modern democracy. All that I am trying to say is, let's not read too much into anything. The factum of election of a person who was well qualified to be elected is not a reflection on the interpretation and law or applicable provisions on any one of us. But that's not the mandate of this forum. At the same time, the moral and ethical issue is for each of us to face individually and sometimes severally. And I doubt if many of us can answer that in a very satisfactory manner.
So the party has nothing to do with ethics and morality, or you
The
look
party-
only into the legal aspect. That's what
The
you're
party has a lot to do with ethics and morality, but how those ethics and morality are interpreted is also within certain bounds. And one of those bounds are the rights of that individual also. You see, I may not like somebody or I may not like somebody's freedom, but I have an obligation to defend that person's freedom despite my personal opinions. And that right and obligation to defend the second person's freedom is the matter, is the bottom line which determines the quality of our democracy.
Are there two criteria of dealing with the rape charges? Because there was a case of few days ago, he was deputy of Assembly Committee. Are you not protecting him since you are holding party?
See, with due respect, Mr. Khaluki can answer it, but I would like to say that this is not the forum and I am not the authority as a party spokesperson to speak on that, because that's a specific matter which is already sub judice. So on many counts, I don't think it is appropriate for me.
If it is sub judice, you would have waited for the court to clear. Why did you appoint him?
Is that what your understanding of sub judice is?
No, I mean,
I was
what is
under the
interpretation
impression.
the government gives.
I was under the impression that if something is sub judice, one is nobody should interfere with the process, due process of law. And the second, the person, no matter person or persons accused, are innocent till proven
That
guilty.
is what you could have waited to clear his name.
That's a hypothetical this thing. We don't know how long it will take. Number one. Number two, I think that would assume guilt, whereas law provides for not being guilty as being the position.
What you are trying to project NPP as the clean image party, as the party for the future of Northeast or whom. But by appointing up a person with a rape charges, do you think it's a vote in the party organization?
I cannot take the position, or someone else besides me in the party cannot take the position of judge, executioner and witness. Our, let us say, assuming that we will wait till the final decision comes, is like saying there is an accident on the road, I am accused of that accident, but I am told not to drive till the final result comes in of that, whether I caused that accident or not. I don't think one person in this room will agree to surrender his driving license. Not about the gravity of the situation, but about the factor of the law with vis-a-vis treating a person as guilty or not guilty. You are right, you are very right. But the accident can be equally or even more heinous. If somebody gets drunk and drives over someone and murders 3 persons. Salman Khan's example we all know. And then what happened in the end also we all know.
You are right, your party is right in your own way, but don't you think that the grassroots people will say that you have appointed a rape accused? Don't you think that will affect your image of the party?
Sir, one thing I must concede is that you have framed the question in a very beautiful manner. Please do not assume that we can take the position, like I said earlier, that of the judge and executioner. What you are saying may be true of somebody who is not taking a holistic view of the situation. If somebody, let me put it this way, if I were to come into the room with blood dripping down my neck and my brother sees me and says, what happened? And I say, so and so, threw a brick at me, and he rushes out, and that's a narrow view. The correct and a larger view would be to look at actually what happened. How did I get my injury? What really resulted in it? Not just accuse the neighbor of having done an act which may not have happened. So, what you are saying is true, but there is a counter side to it. That the larger picture is that in our system of governance, democracy and constitutional law, a person is treated not guilty till found guilty. We cannot, even as a party, overturn that system and start treating a person stands up for election. At that point in time, he has all the qualifications necessary to be validly declared a candidate. I cannot go behind his valid candidature and say, I will, as a returning officer, that I will find his candidature invalid because there are 5 cases pending against him, or 1 case, or half a case, or he is missing. There is another situation very interesting. I may not be the accused, but I may be accused of missing and not doing my duty in a matter where I may be a witness. And the court may have summoned me and there are warrants against me where I am witness to a heinous crime. So there are so many possibilities in law, but ultimately, am I guilty is determined only by the court's orders. A political party cannot start picking and choosing and declaring people as either guilty or having a whiff of guilt. What you are perhaps questioning me on is there a whiff of guilt in this particular candidate? And is that whiff of guilt not enough for us to have ignored his candidature? I am talking in practical, operational terms. I think this is what you are asking me. What the learned journalists here are saying is, one of the candidates whom you have declared guilty, successful, is accused of some kind of heinous crime or illegal behavior or criminal conduct in some procedure, pending in some court of law. Am I right?
No, since you are defending Mr.
Sir, I am not defending.
Do you
I am telling you
there
this.
is no such other person except Mr. Kumar Sarma?
Pardon, sir?
Of the secretary.
Sir, please can you repeat?
There is no other person in the NPP to take up the post of General Secretary except Mr. Kumar Sarma.
Sir, I would beg to again point out to you that I, as the returning officer, am not in a position to pass a judgment on the membership of NPP and their capacity, capability, ability, and above all, interest in being the General Secretary. You see, a position in a party is not just a position of power, it's a position of responsibility. And responsibility has to be willingly taken. It cannot be forced upon. Elections were open for all members of the party. We received only one nomination for that particular position. That particular person in whose name we received the nomination was legally a valid candidate, and I so declared him a candidate. He had the power to withdraw till 16th. He did not. So please do appreciate that I understand your sentiments and emotions, and I am not countering them, nor am I justifying. I am not making any judgment, any assessment, or any comment on whatever the legal proceeding may be pending. All I am humbly submitting for your consideration and perhaps understanding is the factor that I can only take a very narrow, limited view of whether the candidate's nomination is valid or it is not valid. Once it is valid, I have to put it to vote. Unfortunately or fortunately, only one candidate nominations was received, and we declared him elected unopposed as per law.
What is the status of this case?
Further we have a complex mechanism, they will be done. So I am here in front of you as a duly authorized person, and the purpose of our calling this meeting was to give you an announcement of the election results and the procedure that was followed. That was our purpose. Unfortunately, your angst correctly placed or is not appropriate, because our purpose today was not to talk about this case. In fact, I was not even aware that that is an issue on the agenda.
No, newly elected people should have been there.
I think this is not the first case. I remember as a president when that case of Nidaman Chulet came. I'm very clear with this. Like what you said, until proven guilty, a person is not guilty. If you read the book of God's Waits but Sees the Truth, in which one person was convicted in Russia at that time. This person ultimately, after spending of most than 40 years, he was found he was not the murderer. So who are we to judge? No. So my position as a president of the party, even that time, I'm very clear, until proven guilty. And it's not only in Russia, even in US. A person spent 45 years in jail, then he was found to be not guilty. So like what you said, the court is there. If the court, and I make my point even last time also, in the case of Nidaman, the day he is proved guilty by the court, he will be out of my party. We don't appreciate that criminal should get a hold in our political system. And till date, yes, I'll tell you there are cases in which of course due process of law was there, but at least I can say that at least in my state, that most of the people knows how to elect their people, and people with such antecedent, they were not elected by the people.
But what is the screening process when you receive nominations and all? Do you also check the antecedents that?
Yes, they have to submit everything to the party.
Not only that, if you remember the due election process now as per the election commission, complete data regarding criminal record has to be submitted, and it is submitted only after we seek it from the candidates. So we have a duty as per law today to seek such information, and we do seek it and we tabulate it and we ensure that it reaches the election commission, and that's part of the electoral process today. But to give you a larger answer, I happen to have been very, very active in the process of electoral reforms in the country, and late Shri Purno Sangma was one of the biggest supports I had, and we conducted a national, after conducting all over the country, an exercise in Calcutta for the entire nation on electoral reforms. Many of those reforms have actually already happened as part of the effort we did, and Purna Sangma was the spirit behind it. So the larger question, the answer is, here was a man who had the highest offices in the country at his disposal, but indulged in very clean politics, and that is the DNA that has been passed on to the NPP that you see in front of you. There may be aberration, there may be issues of political and legal compulsions that, you see, if somebody says, okay, I have been accused of something but I am not guilty, and as far as we as the party are concerned, we have nothing on record which we can verify that statement, contradicting his statement. By law we are obliged to uphold his rights. Please understand, it's not a question of only liking or disliking. It is an obligation cast upon us as a party to uphold not only the rights of, you see, democracy is not just for the lion, it's also for the deer and the hare and the other animals in the jungle. So I hope I have answered the question in the larger perspective. Our DNA comes from a very respected source.